Here we go, Max. Good to see you, man. How
Thank
is
you.
everything with you?
Good, good. You?
All right, all right. Hey, so here we are. We're gonna talk a little bit about Zuffa Boxing. But before we get into that subject, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about you joining Zuffa Boxing. You joined in October of 2025, and in January you debuted. What compelled you to join Zuffa Boxing?
I've been literally, I'm not, this is, people think people think I'm shilling for it, and I am, but that's because I believe in it. That's why I'm doing it.
Mhm.
I have been waiting for this since I can remember, since I was a little kid, because boxing, the reason I was so excited about it is, as Dana White will point out, like a promoter can be in business for 40 years, and when they go out of business, there's an office suite, maybe half a dozen employees, and they go do other stuff, right?
Mhm.
Decades, hundreds of millions of dollars generated. There's no institution left in place. Dana White, if you ever go to the UFC headquarters, it's like an airline hangar. There are literally hundreds of employees. It reminds me of ESPN when I first got there in the late 90s, like a campus. It's an institution. And the thing about any sport, and like you hear people all the time say, hey, you know what they should do in boxing? Who are you referring to? There's no they. There's no, if I said, you know what they're doing, you know what they should do in football? There are a million football leagues. You know who I'm talking about? I'm talking about Roger Goodell. You know what they should do in basketball? Adam Silver, the NBA, million basketball leagues. They
Mhm.
is the NBA. There's no they in boxing. There's never been an organization since the mob and Frankie Carbo controlled this thing in the middle of the last century that had even the plurality of the best fighters in the world and was seen as the major leagues of boxing. And we're at Zuffa 4 on Sunday night. So we ain't there yet, but that makes it more exciting. Like I did Zuffa 1, and I know this is a super long answer, but I did Zuffa 1, and there's a scattering of people, and we had some good fights. We had a good time. And the next day I went to the UFC event the next night in Vegas, and it was sold out at T-Mobile. So, and 20,000 people, whatever it was. And I thought, this is where we are today, but that's where we're heading.
Awesome. And I am going to actually ask you a little bit, touch on those some of the things that you said. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but so a lot has been said about your exit from First Take. Okay, so I don't want to get into that. There was a
Dude, you
lot
can
of back
ask
and
me
forth.
whatever you want.
Oh no,
I
I know I can do that, but
yeah.
I'm just working with the timeline. Um, but I do want to know if you consider this as a restart of your career or a continuation of it. How do you see this?
I've had other experiences in my career. I left ESPN in 2000 and maybe it was four, end of
Okay,
2003, beginning of 2004, for Fox Sports Net for my own show,
nice.
IMAX. And then also so I could get my boxing rights. So, because the way these companies work is they like to monopolize, at least they used to like to monopolize your rights. It's not now you see ESPN people doing other stuff. It didn't used to
Yeah.
be that way. So I wanted to be at HBO Boxing. ESPN wasn't doing top fights back then. And so in order to do that, I had to leave and I took an offer from Fox Sports Net and I started doing boxing. The Fox Sports Net thing lasted 8 or 9 months. And they didn't know how to do sports TV at the time, like studio type shows, and wanted us to do a bad show, and we wanted to do a good show. And being with it, we just started the contract. I never thought they would cancel the show, but they did. Right. So even though at the time we were doing well by their standards, but so like I wound up on the shelf in terms of general sports for about a year and a half after that. Like I've experienced that before. And then you wait until you can and the right thing comes along and you start doing that. And it's not like I'm fortunate to be in the position that I have options. And so I can wait to choose my favorite ones. And in boxing, this was when I got the call from Dana White, hey, we're doing this. Let's go. Let's do it right now. If after HBO, I did not go back ringside because I didn't feel there was an HBO equivalent out there. I didn't want to be ringside. Even when I was doing ESPN, I resisted doing ringside, which they wanted me to do. I stayed in the studio and I stayed at the desk because I didn't feel like it was up to the standard of HBO boxing. And but like Zuffa Productions, you look at the WWE and the UFC and look at the level at which they're producing stuff, the broadcasts and everything. And it was like, yeah, that I want to do. So I love the fact that they were starting this. I've been waiting forever for Dana to get into boxing because he brings institutional know-how. Like
Mhm.
he brings he at least he has the track record. Let's see if it works. I believe it will. That's why I'm doing it. But he has a track record of being able to produce an institution in combat sports.
So for the people that are watching, a little context. So Zuffa Boxing will be having its first title fight this Sunday at the Meta Apex in Las Vegas between the IBF cruiserweight champion Jay Opiata against Brandon Glanton. He's from Atlanta. This is definitely
So
like,
real quick, the,
yes.
the different sanctioning bodies, I literally have not, I've intentionally avoided paying attention to them for a quarter century now. Since Lennox Lewis was ripped off against Holyfield with a draw in their first fight at the
Yeah.
Garden, however many years ago that was,
Mhm.
25 years ago, something like that.
So definitely,
Since then, I have not paid attention to the sanctioning bodies. However, Ring Magazine championships, which are
mhm.
awarded to the fighter, that proves he is the champion of the division. Forget about all the sanctioning bodies. That dude's the champ. That I pay attention to. And the thing about Ring Magazine and Jai Opataya, who's fighting on Sunday night against Brandon Glanton, Jai Opataya is the Ring Magazine cruiserweight champ. In other words, there's no one, when you say undisputed, there's no one really with legitimacy to dispute his claim that he's the champion. He beat the man who beat the man who beat the man. And Opataya is fighting for the inaugural Zuffa boxing belt. Real quick, the reason that is significant is Ring Magazine is a mechanism that recognizes who already became champion. That guy just did these things and now
Mhm.
he's the champion. We award you the belt. But they don't really have a mechanism to force fights to happen, right? To mandate fights. Zuffa boxing, the hope is, can become the mechanism by which the best fight the best, and we find out who the real champions are in every division.
So Max, first of all, I personally do not like the belt.
The way
It,
it
it
looks,
the way it looks, I don't know. I think there's a lot of
it's a
progress
new look.
to be made in there. It's a
Can I
lot
tell you
of.
something cool about it?
I mean, no. I mean, yeah, of course there is, but I'm saying like in general, I think because we're so used to the boxing
The
style of.
Rocky Balboa belt. Yeah.
If you don't tell me
That's the
that
ring
this
belt.
is for a boxing event, I would have said, okay, this is a UFC belt. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some characteristics in there. I get it. They want to do it a little different. There's a lot of improvement to be made. It's not that terrible. Not my favorite, but it's still
It
not the
doesn't look
worst.
like a traditional boxing belt, but let me tell you something that will make you like it, right? You a fight fan?
I'm a yeah, I can say
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
What the history of belts was they started off as like a little sash or something 150, 200 years ago.
Yeah.
And then over time, there was a period where it was like, oh, it's made with precious metals and leather and handcrafted, it's valuable. What happened as boxing got pushed to the margins, right? As it left the mainstream of American sporting culture, what happened was sanctioning bodies, in order to make money, wanted more belts because every time you fight for their belt, there's a sanctioning fee. Now, there are four sanctioning bodies, okay? Each
Mhm.
sanctioning body started recognizing junior divisions so that instead of 8 weight classes, there are 17 now,
Yeah.
four times 17. But wait, each sanctioning body can have up to three champions per 17 weight classes
Yeah.
because they have their regular belt, their interim belt, their super duper belt, if you unify that, all this stuff. Because every
Yeah.
time they have a fight with a belt attached, they can extort the fighters basically. They can charge a fee, right? They've tried to charge fees even when a fighter wasn't fighting for their belt in another fight, but he holds their belt in some other division, they still try to charge a fee. Okay, so it's crazy. So what happens when one sanctioning body, and boxing is not mainstream anymore, has 17 times three belts per, has 50 belts? Can they be like valuable belts? No, they're trinkets, they're toys, they're plastic, they're nonsense. The Zuffa belt is something in the neighborhood of $50,000 in order to make
Yep.
it with diamonds and all this, but that's not what I'm telling you what's so cool about it because it's actually valuable. Intrinsically, it's valuable for
Yes.
what it's going to represent, but also the cost to make it. Every time you make a title defense, because there's like a black diamond in the middle of the belt, every time you make a title defense, it's etched into the belt. If Jai Opataya beats Brandon Glanton, he wins their title, our title, Zuffa title. Next time he fights, if he wins that fight, that's his first Zuffa title defense. The names are engraved into the belt, and a black diamond is added. You know, like when people
Wow.
talk about a notch in your belt, there's a literal notch in this belt every time you defend it.
Nice, nice. Um, so Zuffa revolution, it changed everything for MMA, right? I mean, through UFC. Do you really believe that the similar promotional model can realistically work in boxing? I mean, it's so wide, so open. I mean, what does he have to do in order for it to make it work the way they desire? There's going to be a lot of pushback. I mean, there is definitely a lot of pushback for that.
They can push back all they want. Like, what do we talk about pushback? You know how many fight fans there are who are hardcore in the United States? What are there, 100,000, a handful of 100,000 hardcore fight fans, a couple guys in chat rooms? Those guys are going to watch boxing. If boxing's on, I'm one of those guys. I watch boxing if it's on, okay? So some of them won't like the fact that it's something new and they're not used to it. That's not what we're after. We're after the big tent. We want boxing to be mainstream again. That's why it's on a streaming platform. You're not with hundreds of millions, you're not going to have to pay money every time you want to see a good fight, right? It's if you subscribe to that streaming platform, which everyone does, you're getting the fights. So your point, I think, is a good one, which is when the UFC came around, you could whiteboard everything, right? I saw
Mhm.
from the UFC from the first pay-per-view, UFC one. I used to love it. Like, who wins, the karate guy or the judo guy, the jiu-jitsu guy or the boxing guy, the kung fu guy? Like, I wanted to know. And the answer was the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy wins everything. And then American wrestlers figured out if we could stay out of submission holds, they're trying to hyperextend my arm and bend it in the wrong way or isolate my windpipe and then choke me out. If I could stay out of those holds and I could elbow them and grind them down, ground and pound is born, etc. Right? And then it became a more homogenized sport, like a real sport. But I was in from the beginning. Zuffa buys it kind of early in its history. Dana White has a dinner at Il Molino in New York in which he brought his roster of champions and he invited me because I wasn't hostile to MMA
Mhm.
because I like fighting. I want to know who wins. A killer whale or a great white shark? I want to know. The answer is a killer whale. Easy, by the way. Easy. Like you could look it up. But the point is, I'm interested in that, like matchups that capture my imagination. And the UFC was doing that. And Dana at that dinner explained what he was going to do. And I thought, I feel sorry for this guy because he has all the right ideas, but to implement what he's talking about is going to take a half century. He did it in like 5 years. And the reason he was able to, I understand what you mean. Boxing, there's more entrenched culture. You can't whiteboard everything like he did in the UFC and Zuffa early on. But that's not really the key to Dana's success in the UFC. And the key to the success of the UFC is the best fight the best. The reason Conor McGregor became a star is not because he was promoted into existence. I mean, clearly he had a big personality and he was controversial and Dana, I'm sure, wanted him to succeed, right? But then he fights Jose Aldo, who's a legend at the time. He knocks him out in the first round. Dana could wish all he wants for Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor's got to fight and win. There are fighters in Zuffa boxing now that there are high hopes for. If they win their fights, they'll move on. If they don't, they won't. But depending on how they fight, maybe they can come back and fight again. That doesn't mean you have to lead with your face and you could be a highly skilled boxer. Give people something interesting to watch. Respect the game. Fight your best. Come prepared. Fight at a world class level and be willing to fight the best fighters in your division. That's really the key to the success and stay active, right? If I told like Zuffa boxing, Dana talks about 60-40 fights, right? You can't always have 50-50 fights. Usually there's a favorite. Not everything is perfectly even.
Of course.
The,
Yeah.
the first Zuffa card was Crawford Canelo, including the main event. Now, how many fights the winner, the favorite won on that card? Six. 6 out of 10. That's 60-40. And then there's 6-3-1, the favorite went. We see cards all the time. And sometimes the odds makers, they're just at Zuffa so far. We've had 3 cards. This is Zuffa 4. They reflexively make wide odds for the favorite. but we get upsets all the time at Zuffa because they're matched tough. In fact, we have a kid who was 4-0 who was put in as the putative B side against a hot prospect, Troy Nash. This kid is the baby bull Ramos, right?
Mhm.
And he fought his ever loving ass off, lost a 6-round decision that I thought could have gone either way, to tell you the truth. And he's back on this card. He's now 4-1. He fought like an 8-0 fighter, fighting another 8-0 fighter because he fought so well. Who cares if he lost? That was great. This kid can fight. Let's bring him back, provided he's willing to fight another tough guy, and let's see what he's got. So when the best fight the best, and I know this is another super long answer. I'm just very excited about this. When, as Dana says frequently, in boxing, you sit down, you pay all your money for a pay-per-view, and at the end of the night, you go, they got me again. But when instead of that, you're not paying for a pay-per-view because it's on a streamer,
Mhm.
and at the end of the night, it's not really an investment of your money, it's of your time. You have your phone, you have a million things that you could be entertained by, but instead you watch 2 hours of fights, whatever it is, and you go, man, I'm glad I did that. I want to do that again. If you can keep getting that, and the opposition is at a world-class level when they're fighting each other, you will build something. And that is the hope here.
You mentioned Canelo, and I only can think about that relationship between Dana and Canelo's always been like at each other's throat, and it's a love and hate relationship with Dana and boxing. And now here we are, like he's technically his boss. I don't know if I will put it that way for him to do it. But what do you make out of this now with Canelo still around, with Dana now in command? Um, how is this going to work?
Well, so for the longest time, people who were really powerful in boxing didn't seem to like it very much. Dana White loves boxing. Nick Khan, WWE, loves boxing. Turkey Al Sheikh loves boxing, right? Those are the three guys who really came together here. Have you ever been to UFC headquarters?
No, no, I haven't
As
had
I
the
mentioned, it's
chance.
like an airline hangar, right? It reminds me of ESPN as they were building their campus. It has hundreds of employees.
Yeah.
Everywhere you walk at the UFC headquarters, it's a museum of boxing. Of boxing. There's the Muhammad Ali conference room. There's the Mike Tyson conference room. There's all this art and photography of Ali and and great fighters through the years. There's a bronze statue in the hall, in the entryway, big lobby, of Joe Louis. Dana loves boxing. He got into MMA. He got into the UFC because he was like, I love boxing, but I'm a frustrating boxing fan. I'm a frustrated boxing fan, right? I want to have a kind of boxing universe, except where everything is done the right way. Like you do it like the NFL, not like boxing has done it. And that's what he did. So
Um,
anyway, so that's what he's doing now. And Canelo, yeah, he's still around, and Canelo runs a great business for himself, and he's been a great fighter, and he's represented boxing well, and he will continue to fight. And I don't see any issue with Canelo and Dana.
so Turkey and Riyadh season and all this money that is coming in that's been for a couple of the last few years, um, obviously changed the boxing landscape. I mean, it really shook it. It really. But what happens when that money eventually dries out?
Okay. Let me give you a quick history of boxing. You want to hear it?
Go for it. The time is yours, by the way.
Whenever there's been an expansion of media, there's been an expansion of boxing. Boxing has expanded with it because it uses boxing. So what do I mean by this? Like I go back to the printing press. Like if you read early newspapers, there are accounts of fights, of organized fighting. Radio, the advent of radio. Radio
Mhm.
was quickly populated with boxing. Television, quickly, boxing all over the place. Why? Because boxing is relatively inexpensive to produce and it gives you a reliable number. It's compelling. So far, radio, TV, things are getting bigger and bigger. More and more people are seeing boxing. It's more in the mainstream. Then cable TV. And what does it expand with? Boxing. But for the first time, the expansion of media means boxing is being marginalized because fewer people have cable TV than have television,
Mhm.
right? It's a structural issue for boxing. Then premium pay cable. Hey, you want to see this? It costs $20. HBO, we're not like the other premium pay cable stations because we have live boxing that distinguished them from other movie channels with or without commercials. We have live boxing. Boxing fans had to pay for it, and it was a big driver of subscriptions. Then Showtime saw this. They go, okay, wait a minute. We have live boxing too, right? So it's expanding with new technology still. But now, like with cable TV, premium pay cable TV, you're funneling a niche audience that you're milking for more money, right? Now the audience for the first time is getting smaller. You're getting more of the hardcore fans, and you're milking them for what they got. Then there's pay-per-view and then closed circuit and then pay-per-view, right? Now it's a much smaller fan base because they don't have access to the best fights unless they pay anymore. But man, you got them on the hook and you're juicing them. Meantime, your product is not being disseminated to the masses and people don't care as much anymore, right? And so boxing got smaller and smaller. And the reason for that is people are motivated by their short-term interests. It's an issue of incentives. And unless there's a structure in place that makes you care about your long-term goals, oftentimes your short-term interests undermine your long-term goals. For example, in 100 years ago, some alcohol or tobacco company, whatever, or gambling, may have wanted to advertise on the outfield wall in some ballpark, major league ballpark. But there's a commissioner there saying, well, you know what? We want families to care about baseball. We want mothers to want their kids to go to games. So yes, this money looks nice for this owner now, but as a league, we're saying you can't take that money because we have our long-term interests in mind, right? Boxing, there's no one ever like that. And so because we couldn't look out for our long-term interests, our business got narrower and narrower and more to the margins, and fewer people were being bilked for more and more money. Now what happened in recent years? First, there was Al Heyman, who's a really smart guy, and flipped the paradigm. Hey, you're not going to exploit fighters anymore. Now fighters are going to exploit the networks and fans. And he got his fighters paid. Good for him. I love fighters who making money. Good. But fighters had a sense that their market was bigger than it was because Al was cutting them really good deals. That money runs out and fights stop happening. Big fights stop happening. Enter Turki Al-Sheikh, who's a huge boxing fan. And he's like, okay, these are the fights I want to see. So, yeah, but we're this many millions apart. He's like, all right, fine. Here it is. Now we're going to make the fight, right? And so big fights in the last several years started getting made again. But how sustainable is it without a league, without some kind of they there with a structure to mandate that the best fighters fight each other, right? And so now enter Zuffa Boxing, where we've been in an environment for the last 10 or 12 years where there's a lot of fighters who are being paid disproportionate to their actual market value. And there's no real mechanism to get them to fight each other absent some overpay by, first Al Heyman convincing networks or investors that, hey, these guys are worth the money. And then Turkey saying, I don't have the patience for this. Here's the money. Give me the fight I want to see, right? Now we have Zuffa Boxing. And the hope is over time that it's built the way the UFC was and that the best fight the best.
I could talk to you all day, but I'm not planning to do that. I promise. I have a couple of last questions. Women's boxing. What is the plan for women's boxing?
I don't know that there is one at the moment, but I'm sure if it makes good business sense, it will exist. And if it is popular, there are popular fighters. There's Katie Taylor and there's Claressa Shields, and there've been many others. And so I can't speak for Dana or Nick or Turkey, but in terms of Zuffa Boxing, if you ask me for a prediction, I would predict that there will eventually be some women's boxing, but at the moment there is not.
Okay, so they're pretty much laying down the base and take it from there. So I've always, and one of my colleagues called boxing to be dead, and you probably know what I'm talking about.
Called boxing what?
That boxing is dead.
I don't know. I don't know which colleague you're referring to offhand because many people have made that claim through the years.
Yes. I'll tell you off camera later on. So basically, is Zuffa Boxing the answer for it? The salvation for the boxing?
People have been saying boxing's dead for time immemorial, right? Boxing's dead, it's dying, it's dying. And as I said, it's because it's being pushed to the margins for various reasons, right? Um, so I'm wary of saying, okay, boxing's dead, and now here's the savior of boxing. The fact of the matter remains, there was no deal for boxing that wasn't exclusively a streaming deal in the United States before Zuffa. It's never happened before. Every other sport, however many streaming deals they have, they are also on there are other avenues to watch them on broadcast, on cable, on whatever you want to call it, satellite, whatever you want to call it, but it's on American television. And boxing before Zuffa was fully off it. That has never happened before, not in my lifetime, ever, since the advent of boxing on television, right? And it was now. So was there something fundamentally different about the calls that, or the claims that boxing is dead, at least in the United States? Yeah, there was a fundamentally different truth to the claim that something had changed where boxing was so marginalized that you could say it was dead in this country. And it has risen, right? Like Zuffa Boxing is on Paramount Plus. It's not just on streaming. It's on it's available on a regular basis with excellent quality fights with high entertainment value. Yeah, it's so this is something when you asked me to start this, why am I involved? I think you asked that. At least that's
Yeah.
what I answered if you like a politician, right? Even if
No,
you
you
didn't.
did. It's all.
But because that's what I've been waiting for since I was a kid, for a they to be there. Because even when I was like 10 years old, I could see this ain't going in the right direction. And everyone knew. It's like not people didn't. And occasionally Mike Tyson would pop up and it would get more popular in certain ways for a while. But then when that guy goes away, then it's not as popular again. There was nothing structural. There was a structural problem in boxing that wasn't being solved, in my belief, until now.
Awesome. And lastly, who will be with you doing the broadcasting for this weekend?
Ringside, Joe Tessitore and Andre Ward.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Max, for your time. Truly is an honor and a pleasure talking to you, man. I
Thank you.
admire your work, and I'm more than happy to have this time with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You take care now. Appreciate it.